Burials. Along the walls of Troy, sentries kept watch over the plain above the beaches and the shadows of the Greek ships. Small fires glinted across the plain and down toward the sea as the Greek warriors cleaned their weapons, repaired their dented armor, and cooked their rations of meat and bread. Soon they would pour a little wine from their wineskins onto the ground as libations to Zeus, the father of the gods. After drinking, they would lie under the black sky in the shimmering point of starlight and sleep. In Agamemnon's hut, the chieftains honored the bravery of Ajax. The high king served him his food first and poured the fine wine for him to make a suitable offering to the gods so that the warriors could then eat and drink. Nestor, the wise man, stood and asked to speak. The others fell silent. I suggest we offer a truce to the Trojans so that we can collect our dead. They will want to do the same. Then we may burn our friends and collect their bones to take back their own to their sons and wives. At the same time, we should build a line of defense to protect our ships. I suggest a deep ditch in a wooden and a stone wall with gates wide enough to allow our chariots through. The Greeks agreed. Meanwhile, on the silent streets inside Troy's walls, nothing moved. But in King Priam's palace, men and women had gathered to honor Hector for his courage. One man turned the celebration sour. Antenor stood and suggested that it was time to bring the war to an end. Helen should be given back, together with all of the treasures that Paris brought with her from Sparta. We promised that when Menelaus stood in combat against Paris and beat him, not to do so dishonors us. Paris naturally was against the idea. He reluctantly offered to pay back all he had taken when he left Sparta with Helen, wife of Menelaus. But Helen would not return. He would not return. Priam felt that was as much as anyone could expect and suggested they send a messenger to King Agamemnon to see if he would agree. They could also suggest to the Greeks that they be allowed to collect their dead from the fighting before the fighting was resumed. King Priam's men agreed. The next morning the Greeks welcomed a truce, but they refused to accept Paris's offer unless Helen was also returned to them. So as the sun rose, spraying golden light across the hills and down toward the Greek ships, small groups of men could be seen spreading out from the gates of Troy and up from the beaches in the ships of the Greeks. Carefully, the Greeks collected the bodies of their friends and washed them. They gathered sticks, branches, and driftwood into huge piles. Onto these they gently laid the bodies of their armor and offerings of food and wine. Soon the Trojans on the walls and the guards along the beaches saw coils of pale smoke rising from countless pyres, and it was desolate work. Meanwhile, the Greeks did as Nestor suggested and built a defensive wall across the approaches to the beaches to protect their ship. Zeus, lord of lightning, looked down from Olympus as the Greeks built their wall. Poseidon, the earth-shaker, watching with him, was angry. They haven't asked us, they haven't poured libations, they haven't prayed or sacrificed so much as a herring. And that wall is a huge work that will be famous, even more famous than walls Apollos and I have built, Poseidon grumbled. Zeus laughed. Don't worry about your memorials, old earth-shaker. You will always be famous. A single storm will blow away their work. You can see to that. And tomorrow, they'll be at each other's throats again for amusement. Small groups of men in the killing zone worked to untangle friends' bodies locked in death with their enemies' bodies. They kicked away the carrion birds already packing at the eyes, and spilled entrails and carried the mangled remains to the pyres. They honored their dead friends and sent them quietly to Hades. The sun set again, and to the sentries watching from the high walls of Troy, it seemed as if the smoldering, sputtering flames of 5,000 funeral pyres were reflected in the stars. Across the dark sky, lightning flickered and thunder rolled in a never-ending warning. Zeus was restless.